guys been with me? Anybody go back 6 years? Do you go back to the beginning? Do you remember when I had my partner Joel? Do you guys remember The Godfather? So, I have very funny lines that I've remembered over my life. And you guys are the same way. Hey, tell me the funniest story. Tell me a great thing that happened in high school. And we all reminisce and we all look back on it. But Joel had like his own language. I mean, Joel was such a good co-host and the numbers were so big and you guys loved him. And it went in very weird directions. But he had his own language. And the people that spoke that language, give you an example. Driving Joel's car one time. He asked me to come pick him up. He had a Hummer. We're in Westland. He had the only Hummer in Westland. Like, those are now a thing, like the Humvee. But it wasn't back then. He had the black one, the blacked out windows, and silver rims. And he calls me up. It's 4th of July. He'd been drinking. He says, hey, come down here and pick me up. So I run to wherever he's at, a few miles away. And I pick him up. So I'm driving the car. He's in the passenger seat. And there was a property in Westland that has the best view in all of Westland. You can see the mountains and you can see all the way to Washington. It's just this gorgeous view. And as I'm pulling up the hill, the owner of the property is outside. And I've always wondered what he wanted for that property. It's a random thing. I've lived here my whole life, but I didn't have Joel. Joel's been drinking. That's a weird thing to ask a guy. Hey, by the way, is this house for sale? And if so, how much would you like for it? Like, that's just a weird thing to do. But I got a drunk guy that now owes me a favor because I ran 3 miles and came and picked him up. So as we're going up the hill, I tell Joel, which I pointed out, I drive by this house all the time, and I tell him every time we go back, that's the best view in Westland. Look at that view this guy's got. So I tell Joel, guy's outside, ask him how much for the house. So I slow the Hummer down, which is kind of an intimidating rig. Like, if you're outside and minding your own business and somebody pulls up in a blacked out Hummer with the window down, you would be best to run in zigzag lines and keep your head down. Like, there's probably, according to the movies, there's like a submachine gun coming out the window, right? So I roll the window down, I pull over, I turn the radio down. Joel's gonna ask this guy, we don't know this guy, we don't even know what his name is, he doesn't know who we are. He needs to ask the guy, are you interested in selling the property? And if so, how much? He needs to ask the question. The words that come out of Joel's mouth is, what's the money on it, Haas? That's what he says to the guy. And the guy says, huh? And I'm kind of thinking the same thing. What? And Joel repeats it. He says, what's the money on it, Haas? At which point, I put the gas down, roll the window up, and we never speak to that guy again. But it's one of these moments, right? Like, what is the money on it, Haas? Absolutely does matter. Sure it matters. I'm looking at Sean Strickland. Sean has been very open to tell you guys his business, which he doesn't owe you. He's been very open to tell you it's about the money. He took that belt off, the belt that I dreamed about. I dreamed at night of having this thing. He took it off and he said, how much can I get for this? Somebody answered his question and told him it goes for $1,750. He set the belt down and said, that's not even enough money to put spinners on my Honda Accent. So at the end of the day, with Sean Strickland, who's not afraid to go into enemy territory, he's not afraid to go to 170 or 185. He fought one of the best 70-pounders in Kamaru Usman. He fought the best 85-pounder in Israel Adesanya. Like, there's not a question of this guy's courage. But he does have a question. What is the money on it, Haas? And it even held this fight up. It even held the fight up. If you guys remember, if your short-term memories can go back to 6 weeks ago, the fight was announced, and then the fight was announced that it wasn't going to happen. Then Israel Adesanya, what a gangster. Israel Adesanya does not get enough credit. Israel Adesanya calls the UFC and demands that it's Sean Strickland. He's got problems with Sean from X, Y, and Z. Sean was the hardest fight. Sean was the right fight. And you want to know what Izzy did? You want to know what Izzy did? None of you guys are talking about this, and it really does irritate me, because fighting is a very personal thing. And it seems like those guys are famous and they're superstars and they're on TV and everybody's clapping for them. Their life sucks. Izzy's life is not fun. It will be. Someday he will do what's called enjoying the fruits of his labor. It's not now. And it wasn't last year and it wasn't 10 years ago. Going to bed early, getting up early, getting the work in, being sore constantly, being stressed out of your mind, changing your physiology, listening to your trainers, getting told what to do by managers and promoters, flying from this town, checking into that hotel, eating dinner by yourself, all while cutting weight, and the only thing you have to look forward to is being trapped in a steel cage with a trained assassin. Literally. So he goes out and he does all of these things. And we got guys that won't show up to fights because their foot hurts. You guys let him off the hook, man. These are your rules. Like the fighters, as much of I don't know a sport with bigger whips, and I really don't. These are my own people. I don't look at football players as tough guys. I just don't. But they show up every Sunday, and they never once sit down and ask you, who am I going to play against? Who's opposite me? What does this one pay? Manning's going to be here this week, and that's different than Rogers. And that's what you paid me for Elway. And I escaped the Young and Montana era. But what are you? Shut the F up. It's Sunday. Go play. Or don't. That's okay, too. Get the F out of here. We'll put somebody else in that has this same dream. Fighters don't want to do that. They get called to work 3 times a year, and they've always got these excuses. I'm not going to go fight him because my foot hurts. That happened, and you guys let it go. In my neighborhood, that wouldn't ride. But you guys let it go. Okay, but here's what Adesanya did, meanwhile. While you want to give him a hard time and you want to pick on him, here's what he did. He never talked about his feet. I don't know how his feet felt. I don't know how any part of his body felt. I do know 6 weeks prior, he was willing to fight Whitaker or he was willing to fight Duplessis. He preferred to fight Duplessis, but he agreed to fight either one. I do know 6 weeks ago, he demanded to fight Sean Strickland, and all the while, behind the scenes, which he never got credit for, he also agreed to fight Jared Cannonier. So we got guys that won't show up for one fight because their foot hurts. And that's okay with you guys. That's fine. That's fine. You can all be a bunch of wimps in this, but whatever. You're okay with it. You have a badass that agreed to fight 4 guys. 4 guys in the last 6 weeks. In the last 6 weeks, Israel Adesanya has been asked by Dana White and or Hunter Campbell, will you fight Jared Cannonier? And he said yes. Will you fight Sean Strickland? And he said yes. Would you fight Robert Whitaker if he wins? And he said yes. Would you fight Dricus Duplessis if he wins? And Israel said yes. And you're in one of these really interesting spots with who you want to give the credit to. How much shine do you want to do and how much parity do you want to bring in? Do you believe from a business standpoint the time for the rematch is right now? The rankings reflected he clearly deserves it. He agreed to fight 4 men in 1 day, which nobody else in your roster would do, including your number 1 ranked guy. Do we want to punish him or do we want to reward him? It's an interesting question. And then you have the rising up of a top 3 media darling ever in Khamzat Chimaev, who's getting ready to take on maybe the most marketable guy you got. Paulo Costa might be the most handsome, the most well-spoken. He's got the juice. He's got the gimmick on social media. He's got the cool shirts. He might be the most marketable guy you got. But you're going to ask Sean Strickland, what does he want to do? And Sean Strickland is going to ask you one question. It's not who is the opponent. It's not where is the fight. It's not how much time do I have. He's going to ask you, what's the money on it, Haas?